Hello everyone, how's it going? I am broadcasting from my very yellow kitchen. Thank you all for joining me. I see Sue saying hello from Illinois, so another Midwesterner. Got Robert and Janice and Ira. James, thanks so much for joining us. James, I really like your little pup in your profile photo. But thanks for tuning in for this week's Sketchbook Skool Student Bulletin. I took the week off last week from bulletins just because it was really busy moving. And I have to say, I think it's interesting, a little bit of color psychology, is that I am lately been more inclined to work in our kitchen that's bright yellow than my office, which is white. So I think that's an indicator that I need to paint my office a fun color so that I will do these broadcasts from there instead of my kitchen. But I'm digging the yellow right now, so this is where I'm going to be. I wanted to start off just by chatting with you guys and telling you about what students have been doing in the classroom, as usual. And this week in Watercolor Rules, we've got that cohort of students working on those lessons, and they were working with Ian Fennelly this week, who is an amazing watercolor artist. He's an urban sketcher. He does it all. And thanks for everyone else to join, Annette and Joanna. Good to see your names. Hope you're peeping this at work. Thanks, Joanna. And I agree, Janice, more color, very important. But in Watercolor Rules, I just wanted to show you some art that students are making. So Ian Fennelly has a really loose, splashy style. And this is a drawing or a painting done by Andrea Rubenstein, and I think it's really beautiful in the way she uses her color, that it has a lot of energy, and it's an urban sketch. And another student, Debbie, she also did her homework, and she used some of the approaches from Ian on some objects just at her fingertips at home. So I love the beautiful color and sort of softness of this drawing, and it doesn't have to be an urban sketch, it doesn't have to be outside. So I thought this was a good example of Debbie doing her homework on a subject under her roof. And a student project that I just want to mention also happening in the schoolyard right now, we have a group devoted to zines and people that are interested in zines as an art form. And we actually, in case you missed it, spoke with John Bloner for a show and tell event earlier this week about zines. And I wanted to show this piece of art that a student named Joyce Summers did. And she shared her story in the schoolyard, and I'll link to the post in my written bulletin, about never having heard of a zine and never using that art form before. And after seeing a lot of resources that John shared and a lot of info in the zine group, she decided that the zine was a perfect way for her to communicate with her family. She said she was getting tired of Facebook and email and texting, and so she used a zine as a vehicle of communicating to her relatives, mailing them updates about her life, which I really loved. And I love that she drew, a drawing of her making a zine. I thought that was really meta and kind of fun to see in an image. So Joyce, thank you for sharing that with us and for catching the zine bug from John, which I think a lot of us have caught that bug in the past. So, in other news, so in the schoolyard, one of our students was inspired by Kosha doing a sketch of a landmark that she passes every day. So she watched a video of Kosha doing a sketch crawl, and Susan was really interested in some landmarks in her neighborhood that she passes every day but just doesn't pay attention to. And I think drawing allowed her to kind of be a tourist in her own town. And she featured the drawing of this church that's actually turning 120 years old next week, which is kind of a big celebration in her community. And I love the idea of sort of taking in your daily commute, or for me, maybe it's a dog walk or a bike ride or one of my running routes, and picking out landmarks and sites of interest that would be really cool to draw that maybe you ignore because you see them every day. So thanks for sharing that, Susan. I appreciate it. And Kim Wilson shared another personal project that she's done, and she actually takes drawings. Every year she takes 12 of her favorite drawings from the year and makes them into a calendar. And she kind of dresses up the pages a bit and uses a quote. And I love this example that Kim gave us of a personal project of making a calendar out of her art. And you can actually learn about a lot about personal projects like that in our Illustration Nation course. So definitely check that out if you're interested in sort of taking your art to the next level. Excuse me. I want to say hey to Cynthia, who is back from Amsterdam, and Irinka, thank you for hopping in. That's great. And another project that I wanted to share from the schoolyard was that Don Marsh shared a really interesting image of a drawing he did in the style of another artist named Stephen Reddy. And he shared this drawing that he did, and I also, as I'm looking at this right now, he has a beautiful yellow Lamy Safari that actually matches the color of my wall. So Don, I'm not really sure what I'm doing with my life because my Lamy does not match my kitchen, but you made the right choice in terms of the color of your pen. But I just love that Don really kind of sunk his teeth into a new artist that was inspiring him and made a drawing kind of in the style of that artist. And I really love this drawing. It's a simple still life, but I think the style is really interesting. And another student shared, she did a sort of side-by-side drawing that I thought was really cool to share sort of progress that she's made as she took the color pencil course. So I really liked how Patty showed us a painting she did of sunflowers a year ago, and almost a year ago. And then after taking our color pencil course, she approached the same subject on the right there. And I love seeing her style kind of shine through in both of these images. And she's using the same subject, but using her knowledge, learning a new medium like color pencils, I think really gave her style a different look. And I love that we got to see these side by side. So sometimes I think it's fun to maybe tackle the same subject using a different material and seeing how they compare. I think that's a lot of fun. And a couple discussions that actually came up in the schoolyard this week, and I'll link to these in my written bulletin. One student, Mike Walters, actually started a discussion just about giving feedback in the schoolyard and how, getting comments and cheers and a lot of positive reinforcement is helpful to artists, but sometimes he really wants more critical and constructive feedback. So that made us all think about how we could maybe facilitate that in the schoolyard and maybe create a topic that would allow artists to post their work with the topic that we decide that says, hey, I want more critical feedback of this drawing. Basically, I'm ready for the comments and I'm ready for tips and maybe things that you see that could improve. And people having a topic to use when they post work that they want a little more feedback on. So if that sounds good to any of you, or if you have any ideas, we're looking for sort of a funny, kind of catchy topic name. Kind of like on Reddit, they use roast me. Well, we don't want any roasting, but we do want a topic that sort of represents someone wanting to get more feedback on a drawing. So if you think of any good topic names for people that want maybe more constructive comments on their drawings, let us know, because I think we're going to make that topic happen in the next week. And people can start getting more feedback on their artwork, which is great. And another discussion that was started by a student sort of led to a bigger debate about pen versus pencil. I say that as I sit here with my shiny new Lamy Safari that I'm so excited to use. But Gail sparked the discussion about, is starting in pencil, should that make you hesitant? Or does that make you less of an artist if you don't start right away with pen? Now, I know all of our faculty have their own thoughts on this. Danny definitely has a stance on it, but some of our faculty use pencils, and we admire and love the work that they do. So I loved that Gail was kind of just pontificating on this idea, and we actually shared a poll in the schoolyard on if you prefer pen or pencil for starting your drawings. And I'm just curious to see what people think and kind of how that impacts your style. So thanks, Gail, for seeding that little discussion with that article you wrote. I thought that was really insightful, and it's a fun thing to think about. Obviously, there's no wrong answers, but sometimes pencil just feels good, and sometimes pen feels good. So curious to hear what you guys think about that. And lastly, to wrap up this bulletin with normal programming of events, I just want to mention John Bloner and the Crazines have a mega weekend coming up. There are so many events happening that I couldn't even list them all here. They're going to be sketching tall ships in a harbor in Wisconsin. They're also going to be sketching reenactments of fur traders from the 1800s. So lots of events happening in Wisconsin. And you can check out the details on those on our blog on the event calendar, which I'll share a link below to that. And then a couple other events that are happening. We have a meetup, some students attending an Urban Sketchers meetup in Seattle on August 2nd. So that's happening today, actually, in a couple hours. So Seattle pals, if you're around, Kate is going to be there with the Seattle Urban Sketchers for a meetup. And then we also have our Northern California Sketchbook buddies meeting on the 3rd. in Dixon, California at a Starbucks. And then on August 8th, next week, we have Sherry meeting up with the Southern Maine Sketchers. So Sherry's going to be at the garden at Pineland Farms again for her recurring meetup. So check that out if you get a chance and you happen to be in Maine. And I just want to I see Cape Town watercolor artist says that she's too scared to start with a pen. And it looks like Joanna is giving some tips that Jean-Christophe, another faculty member, uses when he uses pencil. So I think there's definitely times and places to use pen and pencil, but it's always interesting to hear how you guys are making your art and how you're starting your drawings. I know for me personally, I just finished a sketchbook that I was really precious with the pages and always set up a nice composition. And including working more with this new pen, I have a goal to fill this tiny sketchbook that has a lot of pages. That kind of intimidates me how thick it is. With drawings where I'm not so precious. So that's my personal goal, is to use this new pen and also start a new sketchbook where I'm not as concerned. The paper quality is a little thinner, so I'm not as worried about it being a perfect drawing. I did a lot of traveling this summer and a lot of drawing while traveling, and I thought these spreads were always so beautiful because I had time to sit down and create them. But I think for a more realistic, everyday sketchbook, I'm excited to get to using my pen and maybe making some drawings that I'm not so worried about or not so precious over. So that's kind of my personal goal. I'm going to start that this weekend when my husband and I go to the Ohio State Fair. Oh, and Janice has the same color, so we're pen buddies. But I'm excited to do some drawings this weekend that are less precious and maybe quicker, and drawings that I don't worry so much about. So maybe think about something you can try this weekend that's new or maybe scary. I'm going to be starting this really thick sketchbook, as I mentioned before. So that's going to be the fear that I face this weekend. So I hope you have a really creative weekend. Thank you to everyone for joining. And I can't wait to see the art that you're going to make and share in the schoolyard. So happy Friday and have an awesome weekend, guys. Thanks.